Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. Dave Emmons in a strange reality where we talk about a lot of strange stuff, but what's going on around us in the world, it's also strange. And it's not UFO or ET related, it's human related. Some of the madness that's going on out there. And it's just, can't we have a little bit of common sense, basically? All these, all we're talking about Europe and UK. My guest here, he's from the UK. We're talking about the problems there and also Canada and Australia and the US. We all have our situations going on. And we're starting to make some movements here, and I guess in the States trying to quell the violence, but it never stops. It's nonstop. It's a fight against good and evil. And well, here on the Strange Reality, we're going to be talking about something that's a little different. It's actually going to get into disclosure, and Representative Luna has been saying a few things, and maybe my guests will know what she's been saying and what's been going on there. My guest is a return guest to the show, Strange Reality, Stephen Mera. He's an investigative researcher and journalist of anomalous phenomena. His work has taken him all over the world conducting experiments and presentations. Steve is associated with a number of international think tanks and specializes in subject of advanced UAP studies, parapsychology experiments, and paranormal mechanics. He is an author of several books, and he's a head tutor of the UITC UFO Investigators Training Course. Steve has hosted and featured in over 300 international TV shows and is an official spokesman for subject related TV documentaries and movies with Fox TV. Documentaries and author, he's an actor. He's also an actor and has been involved in these subjects for over 40 years. So he's bringing a lot to the table. And here's some more stuff I got to read about it. This is a long grocery list. Stephen Mera, yeah. He's with the Phenomena magazine. He's got an official website in which we'll post, and he's with the managing director of Awakenings events. Yeah, he gets into the unknown, strange happenings, paranormal insight. Co-author of the Rockdale Poltergeist, and of course we'll put some links on his narrative to let you know what he's going on. I think his links are going to outweigh his bio here as much as he's been doing. He's a founder of Scientific Establishment of Parapsychology, 1996, chairman of MAPIT. It's a Manchester's aerial phenomena investigator team, estimated in 1973. He started early, so he's actually an associate member in the faculty of London. We got small print on this one, Stephen. Uh, Office of Metaphysical Parapsychology and all the like. He's been on TV a lot. He's done TV and acting. So he's well rounded in that part. I'm not talking about like my belly, not well rounded like that, but he's well rounded in knowledge and experience. And he's also involved in a lot of think tanks, and involved in some now. And at this time, so am I. But we can't even share information on that. But
No.
he'll know where to stop. Stephen Mera, you're a pro. Welcome to the show again,
Thank you.
and you got something to say? What's going on with you now, and what your thoughts are?
Well, thank you, Dave, for having me on first. I'm just going to get that out of the way. It's always good to be back. I follow the same things you're following, of course, and I have my finger on the pulse. And I knew that Luna was going to be coming out and saying a few things because they're not playing ball with her. I mean, acting from the Pentagon side, I mean, the military, they just don't play ball sometimes. And when you're talking to these certain commanders and they just don't play ball, you expect them to sort of play ball. But do you know what? Some of them are nervous. Some of them just don't want to breach. If they get told this information is not to go out, when a super authority comes along and says you need to tell me, you're left in a bit of a crisis situation as to, well, I've been informed not to say anything about this, so I'll better judgment not to say anything and avoid the answers and avoid the questions and stuff like that. So that's happening, and it's no surprise. This does happen even on a lower level. But people are going to have to be kicking and screaming to try and get information out, and it's not easy because military personnel are told keep your lips shut, loose lips sink ships, and that's true. It always has done. It's a saying from the Second World War. But and if there's any doubt, should he or shouldn't he? They just don't. Like I was saying earlier, about NDAs. It's like if I'm any doubting in regards, can I say that? I won't say it until I make sure. And this is exactly what the situation is. I think is what, as far as I'm concerned, it's interesting though that she's put this out publicly. She was on the Joe Rogan show.
Yeah.
And she stated, for everybody to hear that, yes, she's facing these difficulties where military commanders should take the knee to the Pentagon and say, look, you know what, I'll answer any of your questions. But, like I say, they're up against the wall. A lot of these military personnel that might know stuff, sensitive material, and they don't want to talk about it, especially if they've been given orders not to release any information to anyone. And then suddenly the Pentagon turn up. I mean, they tried to put her off by saying that, he couldn't even have the meeting initially, but they forced the hand. Eventually did have the meeting, but it still didn't work because they didn't walk away with the information that they wanted because the commander fled. In a sense of speaking, he thought he was so uncomfortable. I
Yeah.
needed to know what is my situation. I'm caught up in it at the minute. He just fled the scene, which again you shouldn't really do. But like I say, there's rules for rules,
Yeah.
and some of them they just don't go as you expect.
Joe Rogan really pushed Representative Luna, and he asked her, "Are there UFOs, and are they made by us or made by them or whatever?" And she said, "I can't tell you. I was in a skiff when I got this information. That was a top secret." And she says, "Yes, there are some that are not." She kind of alluded to that. So Rogan goes, "Oh,
Yeah.
he said." And then she also said, with all of the people that are coming in, these I don't know if you can actually call them tattletales or liars, or they're just telling the truth. I mean, they're coming in and talking to the committees and talking the truth. And they alluded to the fact, and Luna did too, that they're interdimensional entities.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you're going to be hearing this
And
much more. But yeah, this is the new narrative we're pushing now. And that is, look, we have got to get rid of this narrative that these are extraterrestrials traveling the vast distance of space to come here to see planet Earth and us. It's just not true. There's not enough evidence to support it. Not through the UAP program, the task force, not through NASA. They've not got the evidence to support these are extraterrestrial. However, it's a befitting narrative, and I can understand why we've come up with that. But there comes a time when the pill gets too big to swallow, and you think to yourself, do you know what? We're going to have to sort of start changing the narrative. And we're living in interesting times, Dave, because we're seeing that narrative change for the first time
yeah.
away from the extraterrestrial and the ETs and the extraterrestrial hypothesis to NHI in the new word and interdimensional. And now we're going into a new area of study in science. And she's right by saying, what do UAP consist of? Well, some of them are ours.
Mhm.
Absolutely, some of them are ours. We've got some wonderful tech and
Right.
toys out
Yeah,
there.
we do.
Yeah, and some of them are not. So we're now living in times when it's very, very difficult to ascertain, is it theirs or ours? But there's one thing that the true phenomena represents as UFO in the sky is their capabilities to materialize and dematerialize, morph, change shape, those sort of things, which tends to be more the phenomena, I would say, rather than some type of exotic new
Yeah.
craft that they've
But
got.
yeah, Stephen, we were talking pre-show, and I seen internet shows and other news shows that said, that it's called a 3I3L or whatever,
Yes.
Atlas. And down there, they're saying, and I'm gonna let you turn you loose on what you know about this Atlas thing coming towards us. It's supposed to be
Yeah.
12 miles wide, but my thinking is this: what you were just saying, that interdimensional, what they're doing is coming through portals and wormholes to get to us.
Oh
And
yeah.
but why would they be coming all the way from interstellar space with a regular ship coming to when they can use a portal? Stephen,
Exactly. Yeah.
take away on that one.
Well, to begin with, we were looking at a phenomena. The true phenomena goes back in time. It's pre-documented. It's before we even put pen to paper about this phenomena. It was already here. We're the new kids on the block. It's always been here since pre-ancient times. It's been interacting on a global scale with humanity for a long, long, long time and doing various different agendas and different things. However, the phenomena seemingly is right under our noses. It might be interdimensional, so it could be right here, right now. We wouldn't know its existence,
Hmm.
but it could be there
Yeah.
because the interdimensional phenomena represents that, yes, it could be right there, right now, and listening to us, and we would not be aware of it, you know? Um, Sometimes the only recognition that we do get that something profound is close by is our survival senses kicking in. And paranormal investigators might understand this a little bit. It's when the hairs stand up on your
Mhm.
arms
Right. Yes.
and your neck, and
I've
you
had
just get
plenty.
that heebie-jeebies, as they
Yeah.
say. Well, it's more than that. There's a scientific reason behind that, and it's referred to as the fight or flight or survival sense. We still have that mechanism in us. Now, it might be cast back to times when we had predators like the saber-toothed tiger and stuff, which was in the corner over there behind the bush and watching us, and we get that heebie-jeebies. That survival sense kicking in. Now, basically, what it's doing, it's saying, look, just because you don't see it, just because you don't hear it, doesn't mean there's nothing there. It's
Mm.
warning you there's something off. Now, you can get that by walking into certain places or just being outdoors, and all of a sudden something takes a grip of you, and you think to yourself, that's a weird sensation. What's going on? It's as if like phenomena is close by, and your alert mechanism is, your spider senses are tingling in the sense of speaking. Today, though, in modern day society, with the things that we drink, the things that we eat, the things that, what we breathe, there's poisons in all so many things now.
Mhm.
And of course, what happens is that we're dulling the senses. And now refined sugar, I mean, sugar's good, sugar's fine, natural sugar's brilliant, but refined sugar, which isn't really, it's a chemical reactions, is a poison to the body. And it's very, very, it's the most addictive drug in the world. That's what it kind of is. But when we have this with much refined sugar, it lowers your fight or flight response. It lowers you have adrenal weakness. In other words, it's disconnecting us from that being able to feel those things. So I've always said, look, if you're going out investigating, be it paranormal, be it UFO or whatever, just don't have refined sugar. You can have natural sugars, but don't have refined sugar for say 2 or 3 days. Starve yourself of it. And I tell you what, when you are out there, you are super alerted. Your mechanism is like, I'm at 100% power, and it's going to let you know if you're feeling uncomfortable, if there's something in the environment. Listen to it. Listen to yourself. Listen to that, because those warning mechanisms are very true. And with this phenomenon being so old, that the likelihood is that, they're not traveling the vast distances of space in that sense of speaking. They're just doing a skip. It could be a little jump, but that little jump represents a new reality, a reality that we're not in touch with. And that's how this kind of sort of thing, this interdimensional hypothesis, means that it could be right here, right now, under our very noses, and we'll be unaware of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
We
Because we
can
see
both
in different.
succeed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We see in different frequencies. But this right being right next to you, they can they be physical forms, Stephen? Right next to us.
When they choose to be, yeah. I mean, they can manifest into what refers to as physiological constructs. They can take the appearance of pretty much anything. Usually they're obtaining data from the individual, such as what they might perceive to be in their heads, it will become. This is why some people might see giant rabbits or animated toys, which is children, or other different things. It just depends on, the information that they gain from the individual and throw it back at you, basically. If you think I'm going to be this, and then I might be this. And this is what we see now. I mean, back in the 1950s, most thought came to mind that there were other humans like us living out there, and they were very beautiful looking, hence the Palladians, or the Nordics and stuff. But where's all the Space Brothers gone? Well, it's been replaced by, the next mechanism, the next mask, in a sense of speaking, be it the alien grey. There are very, very many of them. And there was actually a gentleman who come out recently, only this week, who stated, and I think he was from a governmental body in the US, saying, "Oh yes, there's 4 recognizable ETs." Well, I mean, you're going to talk your mantid types, your giant insect types, your alien greys, your space brother, human-looking beings. and of course your reptilian or lizard type individuals. But if you really look at the statistics, there's thousands of variations, not four, there's thousands. There can't possibly be thousands of them. It's more likely that it's a phenomena that is utilizing their ability to be able to morph or to be perceived to be anything. And
Shapeshift.
now we're realizing that even false perception is being applied to people having these experiences, which can damage part of the brain, actually.
Yeah.
And it is that false perception by the phenomena. In other words, what you're seeing isn't truly right. I mean, there are people that have reported UFOs coming down to ground, and they've got like round little windows with rivets on. And you think to yourself, this is an advanced technological craft. What the hell is it doing things like got like round portholes and rivets on from the 1930s?
Uh,
Doesn't make sense. Sometimes they don't get it right because
yeah,
they're utilizing the information from you as well.
I've seen ships and they don't have rivets in them. I saw them up
No.
close, really up close. But we're talking about paranormal stuff, and of course, Stephen, you are into the paranormal. You're an investigator. I think I talked to you last time that I have this little thing with both of my cars, electronic problems.
Yes.
They let me know they're around, and a lot of people might call them poltergeist or the noisy ghost or whatever. But
Yeah.
could those be the ETs from another dimension
Absolutely.
right on the other side, Stephen?
There is really no reason to say, look, you know what, all relative phenomena might be connected. We found this throughout the research that we've done. If you take the alien abduction phenomena in regarding paralysis, it's no different than a smoky apparition that appears or shadow apparition in your room and your paralysis is set in. It's the same phenomena. It's just it's just experienced in a different way. We believe it's all connected by some type of source, some type of intelligence, which is interacting with us in multiple different factions in multiple ways. So yes, I do believe that, when we got these poltergeist type things, because the old ruling for poltergeist phenomenon was, oh, it's always going to manifest in a location where there's adolescents because it's linked to those individuals which are psychic PK or whatever abilities, which is causing the phenomena. No, that's not actually true. It's incorrect. And it's like, oh, well, it's always going to happen to people that are maybe having some problems in the home. They've got financial difficulties or the living conditions are bad and this, that. So stress levels are higher and stuff like that. No, it's not always the case. A poltergeist phenomenon is also linked to UAP. And it was discovered through old documents. And this is why Steven Spielberg joined the Close Encounters of the Third Kind in 1977. Incredible film for each year. He used real incidents. He had a big pile of documents and he was looking through them. And he came across some where people were having UFO encounters. And then poltergeist stuff started taking place. And it's clearly connected. So this is why he wanted to put a scene in the movie, which was a bit like poltergeist type stuff going on. And this is when we had this outbreak of stuff in the kitchen, taps turned on, a Hoover moved on its own. It's typical poltergeist phenomenon at the time of a UAP incident. And he wanted to make sure he placed that in the movie because he wanted to keep it as realistic as possible. And this is why it's still one of the very best films in regarding the phenomena, because he actually put it in there. The paranormal is associated with this.
Well, he was rubbing shoulders with some of the big shots too, with the CIA, the military, or the shadow government, and of course these billionaires get to know these people. But
Yeah.
I've witnessed that scene where Dreyfus was at the railroad tracks and his truck was going crazy. I
Yeah.
witnessed that scene last December with my car, and the same thing. It was going crazy, and the lights are all over the place and things. So I drew a conclusion. I said, "Oh no, Richard Dreyfuss did this thing."
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
these things do happen.
but
Vehicle interference cases, absolutely.
so and then when I go up to a soap dispenser, it doesn't work. And my wife says
Yeah.
I have electricity in my body. Uh,
Yeah.
Stephen, can somebody through abduction and through implants, can their DNA be more electrified? I know you get into some of this stuff, Stephen. Can they
Yeah.
be more electrified?
Well, I mean, you've got, the production of what is referred to as electrical hypersensitivity. And that can be through experience of interaction with phenomena with NHI. And what happens is that sometimes people will, their levels, they can't wear watches, they won't work, or the battery drainage happens around them. Sometimes street lights flicker as they're walking underneath. electrical or electronic items play up, failure when you're in close proximity or even touching them. These people have a certain difference about them, and it can be initiated through these types of experiences. It changes the individuals in some biological or chemical way. But this is where we come into the area of research, which is known as galvanic skin resistance tests.
Hmm.
And we are measuring the amount of resistance that the skin has to electrical fields. And
Right.
it's interesting that some people absorb these strange energies and you keep hold of them, like storing them like a battery. And then this is why it's affecting the location, the close proximity to items, electronics, computers, lights, those sort of things. Yeah.
Uh, you mentioned now. I want to jump back to this Atlas thing real quick because you mentioned something very interesting in pre-show. You mentioned that now it's got a 40% probability of being extraterrestrial. Could you tell us a little bit about
Yeah.
that, Stephen? About
Well, of
this?
course. I mean, the principal gentleman came out was Avi Loeb. I mean, I
Yeah.
do know him, and of course, I've been following his work for quite some time, and I've been associated with some groups where we get to discuss about certain things. So we get to find out about the pattern of events. Now we have a Mura, which came by some years ago, and it was a deep space object. It came in at a certain angle from behind the sun, in a sense of speaking, which is a very cute angle. It's a perfect angle, actually, for if you wanted to not be detected so easily by people with technology on Earth. Just coincidental, maybe, who knows? But this other object, which is larger than a Mura, which is bigger, is coming in from the same direction. It's a deep space. It's coming from deep space. So the thing is that we've got some incredible technologies now, with the telescopes that we've got out there. It's just incredible compared to where we were, say, 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago. These things might not be as common, as rare as you think. I mean, they make out they get very rare. Well, you know what? Maybe over the last 20 years or 30 years or something, we've had this tech to look into deep space. Maybe we didn't detect them, but now that it's a lot better, more acute technology, we're starting to see more. Maybe we did have always these things popping by now and again from deep space. What is unusual about that is the elongation of these things. Now, it could be, is it because of the travel that they've done?
Right.
I mean, I think the latest one's traveling about 180,000 miles per hour, which is a very fast, of course, like a speeding bullet. But it's highly elongated. So this is why people start to think, oh, well, it's something unusual. Well, initially, yes, it was. When the information comes out and you get all these stories and the media jump on it, then the media love to emphasize things like, oh, alien ship on, heading to Earth and all this sort of thing. And it makes me giggle, because I've seen these happen so many times, and it comes and it goes, and you think, well, that didn't come to much. I like to wait to nearer the time, but as we are seeing now, is that as it's getting closer and closer, the probability of it being maybe extraterrestrial in origin, some type of technology involved, is getting less and less and less. And now it's down to about 40%, I believe now. As it gets nearer and nearer, it might be dropped to even 20%, and we end up with a situation like a mirror, which is going to fly by and obviously go around the sun and off it goes. Yes, there are some interesting things about them, but not enough to say that it's actually alien technology, I would have said. And there are other people who I've talked with, which are equally academics and skilled in their work, just as Avi Loeb is. In fact, they do the same job.
Hmm.
And they're not saying this. They're opposing it. They're actually saying, well, no, it's an deep interstellar object. We don't know why we would be considered to be extraterrestrial.
Hmm.
So for me, it's like, well, I take it as a pinch of salt until we have the evidence. We'll certainly know more as times pass because it's heading towards us, and we'll believe it go past Earth to some degree, and where we can get some really good data from it.
I
Even
expect.
one particular satellite might be able to actually meet it on its mission. So we'll know more then, but I think we will end up with a situation like we did last time, because I'm sure if we really knew that some extraterrestrial huge craft was heading directly to Earth, which is most definitely technological, I don't think we'd hear about it, to be
Yeah,
honest with you.
yeah,
I think they'll
Stephen,
keep that quiet.
Joe Rogan and a lot of people on the internet, a lot of disinformation, misinformation. uh, they're saying they throw up this false flag narrative, and a lot of people are afraid of that. Like the government or the deep state or the shadow government the cabal is throwing up this flag incident, false flag, to start, I guess, eliminating us. I don't know, but having and then you have Project Bluebeam. I don't know
Yeah.
how much of this you can talk about, without.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, Project Blueberry details have been, well, a lot of it's been released anyway. I mean, yes, they have incredible technologies to create holographic images. That technology is not new. It's pretty old, to be honest with you. I remember years ago watching a television concert show where Celine Dion was stood next to Elvis Presley singing.
yeah.
And you swear to God, he's actually there,
Mhm.
but it's a hologram, and it's incredible the stuff they can do. And that's the stuff we do know, let alone some of the stuff we don't. I mean, it goes back to the Second World War. The Germans were actually on foggy days would come up from the submarines and fire these very acute angled holographic projectors into the sky and an image of the Dover Cliffs, so that passing ships would see that and think, "Oh, we're off course." Make an adjustment into the darker waters or the deeper waters where these U-boats were sat waiting in prey. This technology has been around for quite some time. Are they going to do a fake alien invasion? I don't think so. I think many people are not stupid now. I mean, we know that they've got certain technologies. Um, I don't think that's going to happen, but I think there's lots of people out there that sort of push this engine of ideas, just as people have said motherships are coming to Earth and they're going to be appearing in our skies next Saturday. And then next Saturday comes, nothing happens. And then when you talk to these people, you say, well, they contacted me and said that they couldn't do it for this reason or that
Yeah,
reason.
yeah,
And I'm like, well, okay, all right. Well, if it happens, it happens, Nothing will ever obviously surprise me anymore. But then I am aware that there are lots of tech out there that can cause us to misidentify certain things. But I think the general public are getting a little bit more wiser in time, not be so gullible to swallow anything.
yeah. We've got these amateur, astrologers. They're looking at the moon a lot, and they actually got pictures of the, I guess, craft going around the moon or coming up from the moon and leaving the moon. And we're supposed to be going back to the moon in 2 years. I think that's Trump
Yeah,
has told NASA he wants to
yeah.
get back on the moon. Now, China and also India has had probes on the moon.
Hmm.
Tell us what they found. We've been hearing weird stories about what they found, Stephen.
Oh, well, don't get me wrong. There's enough evidence to support that. What we've been to the moon, and let me just get this out of the way. I mean, don't get me wrong. I've talked about lunar conspiracy, but it wasn't about did they or didn't go to the moon. It was about the technology that might have been used to help them do it. Because I don't think it was achievable just simply by a tin can floating through space in an area which is just so dangerous. To be honest, space travel is extremely dangerous. So maybe there was some helping handing regarding secret tech, to help them achieve that, which is probably where the secrecy lies. And don't get me wrong, they did a backup plan. NASA would have had a backup plan filmed in a studio. Yes, this is where it all comes out now. Oh, well, they faked it. Well, no, they had a backup plan. In other words, they faked the landing because if the astronauts perished on the way there, they would not have said that. They would have said, "We've achieved it, guys. The astronauts are on the moon. Here's the photographs. Here's the video." And then maybe, oh well, unfortunately, some incident happened and they perished on the way back, or whatever, But they would have won this space race one way or the other. But the lunar landers are on there. You can use special telescopes, and you can see the landers on there. You can see the tracks, you see the buggy, you can see the footprints in tracks and stuff like that. So we know that they've been there. Now, the other side of the coin is that when they did go there, what did they experience? Well, the moon has certainly got it's seemingly enough evidence to say that there's some construction on the moon. There are
Right.
towers. There was all sorts of strange things up there. Glass. domes or partial glass domes. They're very old, I believe, but there's definitely been some activity on our moon at some stage. Does it have activity now? I don't know. I'm always seeing little bits and bobs of videos of our UFOs seen around the moon and stuff, but then a lot of them might be fake. It's very easy to fake things these days. But yeah, they could be. They could be. I mean, we know that Neil Armstrong, who never really talks about hardly anything. I mean, when he came to the UK years ago, he was doing a radio show, and he actually waited till he got to the radio show to tell the radio host, no questions about the moon. And you think to yourself, well,
Wow. Yeah.
what what am I going to say? Hi, Neil. You like golf? Tell me about that. I mean, what are you supposed to do? Of
Yeah.
course, you can't. It's ridiculous. But he's always been in a situation, Neil, where he didn't want to talk about it, and I get it. But Buzz Aldrin, I mean, I've met Buzz. He's a nice guy. He has said a number of things. There was an international TV show saying that that he announced that the fact that they were followed to the moon by
Hmm.
UFOs, they saw them whilst they were there and they followed back, that sort of thing, which is understandable because there may have been something which is interested in our technologies, because that's always seems to have been the way. UFOs are interested in our technology and our achievements. I mean, they even watch our wars and skirmishes. To be honest with you, they don't tend to get involved, but they certainly tend to be the watchers, of
Yeah.
course. So yes, I can imagine them doing that with the moon. But yes, there may be some activities out there, but it's nothing. The UFO activity out in space is literally nothing compared to what's I've seen on Earth
Yeah.
on a 24-hour day basis. So if you look at that and the statistics, you're talking hundreds and hundreds of thousands of UFOs being seen on a global basis on a 24-hour period. Where are they all coming from?
Right.
Because it doesn't seem to be enough evidence to support that they're coming from deep space or even passing in and out of our atmosphere. We get some little bits through ionospheric disturbance and stuff, but not that amount. So the big question is where they're coming from, and the evidence now is supporting that they're popping in and popping out of our reality. So they're jumping from one dimension into ours and then going back
Did
by all.
we, Stephen, did we stop the Apollo program going to the moon? I think it was Apollo 17 was the last one, or that was the secret one. I'm not sure. But
Yeah, I mean,
Buzz
well,
Aldrin also with his
yeah,
teammates, they said they saw aliens standing over on a little hill with a craft, and that
yeah,
scared them away. They got scared, and then they cut to the
the
secret
transmissions.
secret radio transmission. Yeah. Do you
It's,
think anything about that, Stephen?
well, do you know what? I'm cut down the middle with it. I mean, 50% of it is me sort of saying, well, I'm looking at the science side of it. Is there any official documentation? Not official, there isn't. There's non-official stuff. But then, you know what? You have to question everything, because even the Majestic 12 documents, for instance, and we made a big hoo-ha about all that. But you know what the actual signatures on them match identical to the signatures of the president at that time, and nobody writes a signature exactly the same ever. So it's like a scan of this of a previous signature of the president. So trying to make them be more authentic, maybe. Who knows? We don't know if it's a red herring, if it's done on purpose, it's disinformation. Who knows? I'm sure certain bodies like that exist, and it's the same thing when it comes to this with the moon. Yes, some maybe some things did happen. Other times, maybe not. But this is what they do. They put as much disinformation out there as information, which is core it creates absurdity, and you don't know what to believe. That's when they've done a good job. The problem is with these skiffs that take place within the Pentagon and stuff, when the discussion of UAP comes up, the problem is that the public can't get in to find out, because they'll stamp it with national security, it gets red tape, and it doesn't get out to the general public. It's okay them sitting there and having a good old chinwag.
Right.
We're none the wiser. And the whole point about the UAP hearings was for us, the general public, to get a little bit wiser. And unfortunately, it's not panned out. And I knew it wouldn't pan out. It never pans out. We're never going to get this great disclosure, because it's much more than what they can handle. Because it isn't what you might just think is simply some ETs traveling the vast distances of space. There's various different types of intelligences, of course, but it's so very complicated. So I can't imagine. They might get little pieces of it over time. But the thing is, it seems that the NHI don't want neither. They don't want it neither. They don't want it out. They've plenty of time. They could have landed on the White House lawn. They could have come down in the city. They can do it anytime they want, but they don't, because they want to remain secret as well.
Yeah.
So
Uh,
we're abiding by their rules, we're abiding their consent, okay, well, if you don't want it to be out in the unknown, then we'll keep it quiet. But of course there's some push against it. Some people want that information out. I think the only good point is that whistleblowers, some of them are being freely allowed to talk about some of the stuff now without repercussions, but then not always because they still get a bit of a rough time as well. So it's not fully transparent. So, but it's tricky because you don't know what to believe at the end of the day.
yeah.
But one thing is for sure, it consists of a lot more than what we're being told.
Yeah. The Pentagon, I heard that too. There's a push and pull with the ETs. And Trump, they say, knows about ETs. He's been told about them. And there's four races here on Earth that we work with. And I don't know how much of that you can talk about, but
I think it's disinformation, to be honest with
yeah.
you. I mean, we say that we're working before. From the public documentation that's available from Freedom of Information Act, which certainly would suggest that we're working with more than four. I just think it's a red herring. I think it's just the press doing what they do best. I don't think President Trump is going to be an individual that information has been shared with. I really don't. I mean, I think I can count on my one hand about the presidents that might have actually known some proper good stuff, and that's only because they've been in the military. They were generals or the head of the CIA, for an example, with Bush Senior.
Right.
These guys would have known some stuff, and but not all of them because they're just elected individuals at the end of the day. And can you even trust Trump to keep his mouth shut about something? I don't even know about that. So I mean, he's probably got some clues, and he's got some people whispering in his ear about, oh yes, this happened, and this has happened, and this is what's going on. But I think that's about it, to be honest. So when he says I've got some information about, yeah, well, he's probably told by some guy and it's whispered into his ear, as opposed to an official manner release to the actual president. I think only a handful throughout the whole history of the United States has actually had a clearer picture of what it consists of.
Right. I think President Trump, he started the Space Force, I guess,
Yes.
7 years ago. And he also, I guess, started that Space Force for reasons a lot of people are saying, well, we're going to be fighting ETs and UFOs. So they don't know. But
No,
as
Space
that goes
Force
on,
Space Force does a lot of stuff. It's not just about, we're thinking, oh, it's about Space Force. Well, it must be about to defending Earth against aliens. Well, yeah, I mean, you know, we can all think that, but Space Force is involved in so much, especially regarding foreign tech,
mhm,
which is spying on us, which does happen. It happens all the time. Everybody's watching everybody with specialized tech. And the thing is that they had to come out with Space Force because the existence of this has been going on for years. I mean, I know about stuff that started in 1965, weaponizing space satellites in orbit. It was signed off by General, launched into space in 1965, became part of Project Blue Fly, Project Gemini, Project Moondust. These were available then, the information. So, and this was linked into Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Dayton, Ohio. So it's a matter of because so many people are involved, and especially those even in, you know, um, establishments, contractors. There's a lot of people that know certain stuff, and it gets to a point where it's uncontrolled. It gets to a point where, well, there's so many people know it's going to get out, so let's make it official. So and then they come out and say we are creating a space force. Well, they already had a space force, but it has, but at some point you have to make it official because you're losing control because there's so many people involved through company work now with the military and contractors and stuff that you've got to get it out. So you say, okay, we are going to create it, even though that we've already had it for 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years, whatever. So it was no surprise to me that, Space Force was coming because you kind of knew it was already to some degree anyway.
right. Well, Trump also said that we have, like he was threatening other countries, like Iran and everything. He used the B 2 bomber to really, I guess, to show them what we have. But he said that we have so many advanced weapons. He said you'd be surprised and shocked by what we have. Uh,
Hmm.
he said that, and I guess he was throwing that at Russia and China and also
Well,
Iran.
yeah, yeah, but
Yeah,
I mean, of course, they've got the same toys as well.
yeah,
Don't think for one second that, that Russia and China don't not got. I mean, they've got some very advanced stuff. Some much even might the US might not even have. So everybody's got their own, it's like a poker game. Everybody's got their own hand and their own cards and all hiding it from each other,
Right.
Try not to let the cat out the bag because people say when we have these skirmishes and we have these wars, well, why, if we've got this technology, why don't they just come out and sort it all
Yeah,
out?
that's my
Well, they don't because then Russia knows and China knows, and it's highly secret. They don't want people to know what they've got throughout the world, so it's kept very secret. And it's not going to be used for things like that. Or if it is, it's done very tactically in the middle of the night so nobody really knows what it is, sort of thing. Comes in, does the job and disappears, very covertly. But yes, they've got some wonderful technologies. We can't even begin to imagine if we were to see some of the stuff they've got now. I assure you, because I know some of the stuff that they're definitely working on. We
Mhm.
consider it magic. We'd be scratching our heads going, that is just crazy. It doesn't make any sense. How can an object generate its own anti-gravity through its skin? How can it morph shape? How can it change? How can it become invisible? How can it bend light around it? How can it generate heat? How can it generate cold? They've got some incredible technologies out there, which we would be bewildered. We would really be bewildered. And you know what? Even the CIA and many others, people call it the woo. In the top levels, they call it woo woo.
Mhm.
In other areas, such as CIA departments, when looking into the UFO phenomena from one department to another, were writing WSFM. And that is simply, it wasn't a secret program or anything. It was just simply called weird science and freaking magic. And that's how they referred to it. And even from one CIA memo to another department in the CIA, so we can find that on sort of a FOIA document. So yeah, you would look at this stuff and say, it just doesn't make any sense. It's crazy. I can't understand what I've just seen.
Right. The high tech stuff that we have, we're not using it. I hope we use it to deter nuclear annihilation. I hope we use it for that.
Yes.
I heard that the Pentagon, half of them don't want to disclose, and then you were talking about the ETs don't want to really disclose either. Why
No.
do you think that? Because the people aren't ready, or the big rich corporations aren't ready for power changes and devices
Yeah.
that can really cut their profits into. What do you
Well,
think, Stephen?
yeah, well, considering the UAP phenomena or the UFO phenomena, whatever the NHIs represent, human society, modern day human society, is a snippet of time compared to how long they've been here and doing what they've been doing forever. And they don't want to change that process. The NHI do not want this. They want to be part and parcel of the reality that we operate around us, covertly, hyper elusive, going about doing their own things like caretakers. But hey, don't ask any questions. Occasionally we'll interact, occasionally we might gift. We want to advance humanity in technologies, but don't start getting into the inner core of questions because you won't get it. And we are not going to land on the White House. People have said to me, well, why are they going to land on the White House? I said they don't need to because they're already in the White House.
Mhm.
It simply is that they're connected. They know what's going on, especially even in within certain individuals. So yes, they don't need to land on the White House lawn, and they're not going to because that's not what they want to do. They've never shown that we want a global consciousness change in regarding our existence ever.
Right.
Even throughout ancient times, they've been just as mysterious then as they are now.
Mhm.
No different. It's just a society and the way they act is exactly the same, just years and years later. So I don't think they want it. And in regarding humanity, I think if the people are at the top, that certain people do know, I don't think they know as much as we would like to think that they know. I don't think they do, but they might consider themselves, well, I know a lot. And if they do, they will probably come to the same conclusion. We can't drop this onto the laps of scientists and the people, the general public in the world, because it's going to implicate so many changes in your belief system. Now we can't even manage to cope with the structural changes in changing of things throughout belief systems, even religion. Yeah, and then we've got the economy of the planet and all sorts of different things. So yeah, it's a massive, massive change. I mean, we're warring around the planet over something or nothing, but at the heart of it is usually greed, um, money, and religion.
Mhm.
And if you suddenly to say to everybody on the planet, all your religions are all based on information which has been derived and put together through a belief system of NHI interaction, how? Oh my God, You
Could you,
can't imagine how
Stephen?
people would react to that. You
Stephen,
know?
could you explain NHI to the public here? I mean,
Yeah.
they're hearing you.
So, yeah, NHI is the new terminology. We don't say aliens anymore because the reasons being we don't know if they are. And we don't say extraterrestrials, and the reason being is because we've no evidence to support that they are coming from other planets from deep space. So we're now using the new narrative, and it's not when we say we, the Pentagon are. There was a narrative change is taking place, and we knew it was going to happen about a year before it started. To be honest with you, well, I mean, within our close circle I work in, the new narrative is NHI, non-human intelligences. And why did he say non-human intelligence? Because it represents everything. If you're having an encounter with an angel, or you're having an encounter with a demon, or it's an alien, or a cryptid, or whatever, it falls under one heading now, NHI, the non-human intelligence, because they are non-human and all intelligence. So it's non-human intelligence, and that's what NHI represents.
Just like the terminology UAP and UFO, they changed that in
Yes.
order for having the for the military and our governments to have a better narrative at how to explain this stuff.
I agree it should have a better narrative. I mean, I started getting into UAP stuff years ago and I started looking into sort of studies in meteorology. Everything was UAP then. But and it's also handy as well because that 70, 80, 90 years of that reboot of away from the UFO phenomenon into UAP kind of gives it a kind of new look, a new feel, a new image. Really, we've got to be careful that we don't be ignorant of all those incidents that have taken past in the past because there are very, very, very many interesting and important cases we shouldn't forget about, which came under the narrative of a UFO.
Something slipped out of the skiff and the committee. Luna, I think she might have said it because she's the only one really talking, even in short paragraphs or whatever, but or short sentences. But the whistleblowers are saying that we have at least 8 downed UFOs that we've been back engineering. Stephen, do you know anything about that?
I assume we probably got more than that, to be
Really?
honest with you. Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, but the thing is that these crafts, you got to consider the phenomenon, the technology. They're not just going to fall out of the sky. Yes, you might consider that some might have been brought down by using specialized technology. Yes, I can get that. I can understand that. But a lot of these is what is referred to in the higher circles as gifting fields. In other words, there's a reason that some things might come down and plow themselves into the ground, or parts fall off, or explode in sky, or break down and stuff. It's just ridiculous. I mean, no craft could travel across the space if it was just going to come here and break down. Or fall out the sky or explode them. And this is what's so, how Jacques Vallée would say, it's absurdity. It just doesn't make sense. And it's done purpose to mislead people. Now, when you say about gifting fields in the top layer, these individuals, they're talking about NHR, they're talking about these, if you want to call them ATs or whatever, it's about whatever's responsible for them, the highest source is saying, let's plow this thing into the land because I know that I don't care. I can sacrifice the biologics inside. I'm not bothered about that. But the humans are going to gain some technology from this and they're going to help them gain, an advanced technology. And I think that's been the situation for quite some time. They've been referred to as gifting fields. They've been gifting us with technology. Some of those things might be, coming down to ground because I don't think the phenomenon can really is too bothered about that. It's to sacrifice biologics. So I think this has been going on for quite some time, and it seems that they've even got a hand in regarding how we got to space.
Yeah.
Because if you look back through all the rocket geniuses of the world that helped us get to space, they were all receiving information from downloads during the day, dream information, or even, believe it or not, direct communication by these NHI to them in regarding how to go about it. I mean, Stephen Hawking in the UK, he's passed away now, but he said he got his information. I mean, some of his information did help me regarding space travel and stuff for sure, especially the equations and mathematics involved. How did he get it? He said it came in dreams.
Yeah.
David Adair, rocket genius, said exactly the same thing. How did he get it? It came in dreams.
Yeah.
So you've got to consider who's at the steering wheel here, and how and why are they providing this information to these people? Well, I'll tell you why. It's because they can make an impact. Even inventors, some of the greatest inventors in the world. You know, Leonardo da Vinci as well. You know, they were all tapping the source. The phenomena was communicating with them in one way or the other,
Yeah.
and they were, trying to better, take a swift turn or advance humanity or whatever. Yeah, absolutely. Even phenomena like that is UAP have even changed historical incidents as
Yeah.
well when they've
Yeah.
turned up.
Tesla, the same thing.
Yeah,
And Werner von Braun. Tesla
yeah,
Tesla said he got his information from outside. Well, scientists, neuroscientists are saying that our brain is a receiver.
yes,
It doesn't come up with the ideas. The ideas come into us. That's what Tesla was referring to. Werner von Braun, and I know Uri Geller, and he has told me, I had him on a show one time about 4 years ago, and he was telling me that Werner von Braun showed him some alien bodies in a I guess a bunker was guarded by Marines, and so he's seen these bodies. And Werner von Braun, they're talking that he was responsible for our secret space program, which we were alluding to a while ago.
yeah.
You know about that, Stephen?
I do know a little bits about it. I also know that, when he was on his deathbed, he actually said the next war, World War, will be with them. I don't know if that's going to be the case because we've coexisted for such a long time
Yes.
already.
Yeah.
I don't know. However, yeah, I can understand him having knowledge and being on the inside, of course, absolutely. I mean, most of these people should have been tried for war crimes, to be honest with you, creating the V1, V2 rockets, which were coming over here and killing our relatives in London. I mean, they should have been put in prison, not, employed by NASA to create the Apollo program and get to the moon because basically the Saturn V rocket is just a giant V2 rocket, really. It's
That's
the
an
same
interesting
principle.
interesting statement there. Uri Geller told me that him and his brother was doing his management of his show and everything. And Werner von Braun was fascinated by Uri, and that's why he brought him in his office there in New Mexico. And he, Uri started off by telling him, and he thought he's going to be thrown out, just what you were saying. He
Mm,
said, where is your conscience at? Killing all these people with your missiles, your
yeah,
V2 whatever rockets, and he looked at Uri and he says, I just sent him to a better place. So that's all he said, his answer. But he
I
showed
know.
these ETs. But I get to the point where we do have a secret program, and they said
Mm.
it's pretty old. It goes back further than what we think.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you look at a friend of mine, Gary McKinnon, who's based in the UK, he was tapping the source of NASA some years ago, got caught. But he was saying that there were ship-to-ship communications, there were communications suggesting ET officers, whatever, extraterrestrial officers, off-world officers, whatever they are, and numerous different types of craft, which are cylindrical. And he said there were no rivets and stuff, and it had radar systems that looked to be a bit like the domes that you get around National Security Agency facilities, which house large satellite dishes in orbit. Yeah, we probably do have some of this stuff because we have with everything else, even aircraft. If we just look at aircraft, we're still traveling the same way all these years later. We're now 2025 and we're still traveling the same way we did in the 1970s.
Mhm.
But where's the technological rise went like this? It went crazy. And then it got to about 1970s and it went boop, it flattened. Where's all the rest? Well, I'll tell you what happened all to the rest of it. It all went black. It's all black.
Yeah.
In other words, we've got stuff out there. It's incredible stuff that we'd think, wow, I can't believe we've got that. So there's the public information as to this is the technology we've got. And then this is the information that secret information that this is the real technology we've got. And you're not going to find that out until 20, 30, 40, 50 years later. And it's not just the same with aircraft, but it's the same with things that we have to fly in space. I mean, we used to think the space shuttle was fantastic. And then we dumped it. So what's replaced it? What's replaced the space shuttle? We might have the X-35 or the X-36 or whatever, and things like that. Yeah, but what about that? That's the stuff we know about. Where's the stuff we don't know about? Because we
Mhm.
know there's aircraft that we don't know about. The knowns unknowns, should we say?
Yeah.
Like Aurora, and things like that. Yeah, we know we've got them. Yeah, but we've never actually seen it. Well, okay, they do a good job. It's the same for spaceflight. So yes, I can imagine that the technologies that they've got are in every single facet of everything, engineering, space rocket flighting, aeronautics, you name it, it's everywhere, but it's just kept dark for a certain length of time. So yes, I can believe that we might have what you might through a secret space program. Sure, absolutely. Well, I mean, why wouldn't they? Of course they would.
Right.
Absolutely.
President Eisenhower, when he made his exit speech in 1960, one of the things he said was, "What we have to worry about today," he says, "is the military industrial complex." Now, they are the
Well,
ones that are doing all the back
he's right.
engineering and all
Yeah.
the scientific stuff. Stephen, could you tell us a little bit about that? About
Yeah, he was
did
he
he
was
meet?
absolutely right. He's
Did he
bang
meet?
on.
Did he
Yeah.
meet ETs back in the 50s?
Well, did some of the presidents meet ETs? Well, suggesting that yes, some claim that they had. I understand that. Yeah, I mean, Jackie Gleason was apparently taken to show, seen some. He
Yeah,
was a very good buddy of the president. We used to have golfing buddies, and apparently was taken. He was never the same after that.
yeah,
His life changed dramatically. Never the same. His wife said, he just lost it pretty much after that. He just, some people can't digest it. He even became obsessed with the subject too, literally buying every feasible book on the subject, any research papers. He even designed his own house in the shape of a UFO. He became obsessed, but it did affect him seriously in his life. Now, yes, I do believe people have seen, dead biologics. Absolutely, of course, yeah. I mean, I think these have been gifted, over the years, and we learn about them and that sort of thing. So yes, I think that opportunity has come about. Very few, but it has done. Now, the thing is that he was absolutely right when presidents had turned around and said, "Well, watch out for the military-industrial complex." Well, that's exactly where we are today. He was absolutely right. They've taken over. They've taken control, and it is these companies we've got to worry about, not the military. We've got to worry about these factions. These secret factions are linked to these corporate establishments and military industrial complex, which are running the show in many of these
yeah, they
cases.
are. Yeah.
And we're quick to jump on it and say, oh, it's the government hiding this and it's the military hiding it. Well, not always. In fact, no, it's not sometimes, and they get a bit of a bad rap. The thing is that, they're very, very powerful. The money, the billions behind these corporations is incredible. So these are the guys you don't really want to mess with, but at the end of the day, they know some stuff. They really, really do, and they're involved in lots of different things: privateering, profiteering, all sorts of stuff.
Now, I don't want to dig into your NDA, uh, you know, lines here, but you can't even, with all the contacts you have and the think tanks, you can't even get involved in researching these dark projects or this shadow government. You can't get through there, can you, Stephen?
Well, let's just say, let's just say that when I was involved in some high, special, secretive experiments, that there was an outreach from the US government to me, asked me several questions about did I work for the CIA or Department of Defense and things like that. Wanted to know about the information that we had and how we obtained it and who was I and that sort of thing. So we caught the eye. So yeah, I've been through that. I got through that. But I didn't bow to it. I said, look, I'm not sanctioned to, I'm not restricted to not release information. I work with the general public, and if they want you to toe the line or not talk about something, I probably would say, well, you know what? I don't agree with this, and hope and pray that they allow me to continue. Well, I kind of realize that if I share the information, that means they're getting it as well. So they can keep an eye on me then. It's when you don't share information, they're wondering what's he up to, you know. So yeah, I mean, I've caught their eye, and yes, they were so blatantly obvious. It was like, we want to talk with you, we want to ask you these questions. They reached out, and I thought, okay, well, that's a direct approach, and fine, I credit for the direct approach. So I realized very quickly that I wasn't lonely at the top. There were other people working in these experiments and doing these things and finding similar things. They got to be ahead of me because they'll have better resources and finances to do that. But it's the releasing of information to the general public is probably their main concern as to when do we release this information to the public? Well, should we sit on it a while? Or the problem is, there's private, there's public people out there now, scientists, people which do experiments like myself, which are going to give that information out to the public. And I think it's good that it keeps them on the toes because they can say, well, okay, well, we can't sit on this for too long because there's people in the public domain that are going to release it where they're doing their work as well, you see. So yes, I'm aware of them, they're aware of me. We have an understanding.
Yeah, I going back to the military industrial complex. From what I understand, I've talked to a lot of people and probably CIA operatives, they've been or have been, and they actually told me that they've back engineering the abduction process where they can come in your house and even be invisible, come in and take DNA or take measurements, frequency, and everything else, or semen samples, and they back engineered what the ETs do. Uh, the military industrial complex. I was told that, and that kind of blew my mind. I thought, our people are doing that. Why are they doing that? I don't. Have you ever heard of that, Stephen? Is it
I've
crazy?
heard of some, yeah, I've heard of some things. In some locations, there are some very nasty thing that goes on in places like Brazil, Puerto Rico, the Amazon. But then, of course, there's still a lot of gold in rivers and land and stuff. So sometimes it's about scaring away local communities under the premise that these things are, well, under the guise, should we say, that these things are aliens and this, that, and the other, and it scare the public and they move from the land. I think that can happen. I think there's also, we do have the technology to sort of pull off a fake abduction. Of course, yeah. I mean, we've got some wonderful toys. But it's a psychological process. I mean, we even have to ask the questions now: is an alien abduction a physical thing? Because there's the possibility that we may even have the situation where we are being dragged from our physical selves, and it's our consciousness that has these experiences.
Yes.
And because we believe we have these experiences, therefore the markings on the body appear. Like stigmata. I mean, you could argue the point, well, how does stigmata work? Well, you believe in it so much that it appears on the body.
Yeah.
So yeah, it could be that case. We when people say we've been taken through the wall, well, yeah, but was you physically still in bed, and they've taken you in a spiritual, in a conscious way? You took your consciousness and had this experience, and then placed you back. Who knows? I think in some cases, some of them are physical, and some maybe not. I think there's a bit of a both going on. But sure, yeah, I'm sure they could pass themselves off, and you wouldn't know if they were really truly these strange beings from another planet abducting you, or if it was actually something else. Because it could even be things introduced to your body to make you sort of, pliable in perception in regarding experiences. And did you really experience that, or is it actually something that they've given you to make you think that you're going to experience that? So there's lots of different things. So you get into MK Ultra, stuff and experiments, then it starts getting a little dark, to be honest with you. But yes, for sure, things like that have happened.
I've had an incident one time, Stephen. It was actually a regressed dream, lucid dream, that somebody, two entities in behind me, was walking me through my living room, and
Oh,
I had a metal door, and they told me to walk through the door, and I thought I'd hurt myself if I tried to walk through the door. So what I did is I stuck my arm in first, and I got it about halfway up, and it started burning. And then I felt the pain and I just went through it. I said, wow, I'll just go through it because it's starting to burn. So I talked to a scientist in New Mexico, and he told me, and I think he was kind of like CIA related, and he had Men in Black after him, but he said that sounded like it was real because you felt the pain, you felt the heat, and he said that tells me something really happened to you. Uh,
yeah.
Stephen, so what do you
Yeah.
think? Is that?
I think some things are actually physical. Yeah, they do physically do take place because we find physical evidence in the environment of these things actually taking place. Some of them are, but then I think also some of them are more spiritual or consciousness. So you've got both,
Yeah.
and you should have both really, because if you think this phenomena, the first ETs, or if you want to call them ETs, NHIs, that turned up around, in people to experience was through seance work, was around the seance table. Long before linked to a UFO came down and we saw ETs and
Right.
this, that, and the other. They were seeing the same things were seen then. So they've got this aspect of both physical and non-physical. So they might interacting with us in two various different ways, in a non-physical way and a physical way. So we end up with physical evidence when it's physical, and we end up with more, psychological experiences when it's non-physical.
Yeah, you experienced some things, and we talked about, little electronics and paranormal things around you, and I have too. So we're both in that thinking process. I do have people that listen to me on the shows, and there's about 40% that say, okay, I agree that there's probably UFOs and there's a life out there, but there's probably about 50% plus that don't believe. And this is probably why the ETs don't think we are ready, because we got half the population that could jump off buildings because if they found that out. Stephen, is that maybe?
Well, I think that, there are people that don't believe in this, and I don't have a problem with that. I think it's healthy. I think it's good. I don't think people should be naive enough to believe anything without evidence.
Mhm.
And I would say, look, I've come across people which have been involved in experiments with us, and they've been absolutely shocked, reduced to tears after 16 years of research. They just basically broke down because they'd never experienced this before. And it's a life-altering situation when you do experience that. But don't get me wrong, you ever end up with a few sleepless nights for
Yeah,
sure. I had to go through this hard learning curve, and my exception levels have risen so high now that, a simple light in the sky, or somebody says there's some strange knocks coming from a wall, just doesn't do it for me more anymore now. I just need
right.
to know more. I need to know more. So, and the
Mm.
mechanism, what's going on, why is he doing it, and that sort of thing. How can it do it? Those sort of things. That's where we are now. So, yes, I do believe that there's a number of people who don't, and that's fine. I think it's healthy. But is there a concern? Well, it would be. It could be a concern. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're led to this. So all the television shows and all the movies, and it's like, oh, it's going to be mad panic, and it's going to be this, that, and the other. For some, yes, for some, but for others, not so much. I think we are gaining a better understanding of this because it's leaked into everyday life so much now. It's absorbed into our social conditioning, in a sense of speaking, that these things are very possible. Now, I would expect that some countries would just basically fall to the knees because their belief systems are slightly different than yours and mine and that sort of thing. There's going to be impacts, of course, absolutely. So maybe there's a good reason why the phenomena is not revealing itself in a big massive disclosure, and why the governments of the world are not doing it neither. I
Right.
think all of them is about to gain as much as they possibly can and as often as they possibly can by keeping it secret, yes. But it seems like the phenomena wants to do the same thing. So, we're fighting both sides really to try and get disclosure, aren't
Yeah,
we?
the history is not what we think, and I know that you have researched a lot of that, and I have too. I looked into it, and the history's been a lie. And what they do is they control us, put us in fear. Religion does that, puts
Mm,
us in fear so that we don't look at these other objects shining around us, and we just keep our heads down. Uh, I want to turn you loose. I know there's some things that I don't want to keep you from talking about some things that you really are impressed about and what you found out lately. Could you tell
okay,
us some new things that you
sure.
found out that's really I don't want to suppress,
No, no, no,
that.
no,
Stephen,
absolutely.
go ahead and tell us.
Well, some of the most recent work now is regarding NHI communications. How do we achieve NHI communications? Well, now we're realizing we can do this through consciousness in a manner. Now, multiple different ways of doing this. Some people are talking about utilizing God helmets or creating something referred to as a dog whistle, which is certain frequencies that might attract UFOs. Well, I think UFOs are attracted to a number of different frequencies. It's not a dog whistle as far as I'm concerned, but they might get some hits now and again, of course, because they're the watchers. They're interested. If we start firing strange frequencies up into the sky, we might gather something comes along and says, "Oh, what are you up to?" sort of a thing. So yeah, it's very possible. And also the new work in what is referred to as quantum imaging is tremendous. Now I can't talk too much about that, but because of NDAs. But however, what I can say is that there are new pieces of equipment now that is looking beyond space and time around us, and we are seeing very large geological constructs. We are seeing things which is part of this reality all around us. And I mean all around us. and in space, which we would never have known existed if it wasn't for this type of technology. That is a new area of science, which is really, really going to take some time to get into. But it is absolutely tremendous. I'm aware of certain things which are just mind blowing, to be honest with you, in regards really what reality consists of. It's like a mechanism of reality that's NHI seem to know about, and we know very little about it because we are very limited, the human being, as to what we can see and experience. But there's so, so much around us that we're not aware of. And this seems to be being captured within specialized pieces of equipment now. This is where we are now. We are looking at why is the human being probably the most limited creature on the planet. I mean, your pet dog and your pet cat have got more skills in perception than we have. They can see things we can't, they can hear things we can't. We are very, very limited of all animal species on this planet. Why? Why have we been fashioned and so to be so limited? It's as if like it's done in this. I mean, it's a bit of a stretch, but it's a bit like saying the new human being, point two, should us, the human race, human sapien, and it's been designed with blinkers on so that the phenomena can operate around us unknowingly. It's very, very interesting where we're heading.
Yeah. Are we a matrix, Stephen?
Well, the Matrix is, I mean, we people can't help sort of refer to the films, but let me just say this without getting into too much detail, is that there is, if I don't like the word matrix, but there is a program, there's a mechanism of reality all around us that we're unaware of, and NHI and UAP are very knowingly about it. They're actually part and parcel of this, and there are people at the top end of certain governments that also know it's of existence. And it's going to turn everything upside down on its head. It really is when we start to get into that, let alone the understanding of UAP and NHI, when we get to realize, whoa, well, hang on a second. There might be a grid of stuff all around the planet, which is maybe keeping something out or keeping us in, or it's monitoring us, but there's a network of technological probes or whatever these things are all around the globe, high altitude, 85 miles out, that sort of thing. And they are old. They were there prior to even Sputnik. So they're not ours. Whose are they?
Mm.
So something's been monitoring us, controlling us, intervening with our reality. That is a massive head problem to try and sort of work out, because you thought it was hard to work out UAP and NHI. When you start getting into that and you're thinking, what is this construct of reality? And what's behind it and how was it created?
Yeah.
That's the real big thing, really, to be
Yeah.
honest.
That's what I'm getting to. I don't watch orbs in the sky anymore. I've seen them up close. I've seen a lot of things, but I want to get into the real deep stuff, like the psyops of it, like you were talking about
Yeah,
what is controlling us. Is so the matrix? Are we a hologram? I've seen some hologram images in my bedroom one time, and it scared me. But they come here. They can be an avatar. They can come here like an
yeah,
avatar hologram and just visit or whatever. But I also know that there are people like Dr. David Jacobs said in his book,
yeah.
they are walking amongst us. Could
They
you
are.
something about that, Stephen?
They are definitely walking amongst us, but not in the sense that we might think. I mean, I don't think that they're not shape shifting into a human-looking being. Let's just say that. That's I do know. What I do know is that they can occupy the mind of a human. So when we say they're walking about, yes, could be anybody. I've had some strange experiences over the years with certain individuals that have come up, and I just know something's not right, about them.
Yeah,
And yes, when people say they're walking amongst us, they are. But then this is a phenomenon that can hijack consciousness, so it can come zoom straight in, and you don't know what you've been doing for the last 24 hours, but then you've just been utilized as an avatar. It can hijack consciousness. So, and sometimes they can communicate to others at that time, and you've no recollection of it consciously until and afterwards you think, I've no memory of what I've been doing for the last God knows how long. NHI can hijack consciousness, and not just consciousness of the living, but also the consciousness of those that have passed over.
Really? Can they come
Starts
in
getting
human form?
very interesting.
You say
You
they're
start,
not, or do they
well,
come in human form, Stephen?
well, I mean, they already are. If it's consciousness that they're coming in and using individuals, then they'll look like that individual, but they won't act like that. And they act profoundly unusual, and say profoundly unusual things. But there's usually a reason for it. But spiritual phenomena, I mean, when people pass over, there seems to be a certain duration of time before they go on their way to wherever they go. The
3 days.
transition, the cycle, reincarnation, call it what you will. So what happens to that consciousness? Because you're given a new consciousness if you're going to have reincarnation.
Mhm.
You might have some sub roots there that you might remember now and again, but the conscious, where's it gone? Well, the consciousness goes out into the world of pool of consciousness of a universe or whatever, but seemingly something might be able to tap that source and hijack that source in a sense of speaking. So when people are thinking years later they're communicating with a past relative, it might not necessarily be that. It might be the consciousness of that past relative. But then some people might argue, well, what's the difference? What's the difference between talking to you, Dave, and talking to your consciousness? Is it the same thing? You see what I mean? So it
Mhm.
starts getting very, very tricky. We have to look now and consider all possibilities, as to what is it we're communicating with? Is it themselves or is it their consciousness? And you think they're both the same, but they're not. There is a difference.
Now you hear so much now. It's probably a lot of crazy talk out there, but they talk about body doubles and cloning. Are we to that point where we can do that, Stephen?
Oh, got to be doing it. You just know some secret place with enough money and research are going to be doing that. We've cloned Dolly the sheep. We've cloned other things. I mean, I think we originally were, to be honest, to some degree. We're not cloned, but genetically altered in some way because the human being has so many genetic errors. It's crazy. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, if you look at a chimpanzee, it's not hardly any. Be honest, no genetic errors. You look at the human body, the new human, as well as point two, is we got so many genetic errors. We could even argue the point something's manufactured us or something in certain ways. So I would say, yeah, it's got to be happening. It might be done very quiet and very secretively because of you got to consider the protocols that are involved here, and is it inhumane to do so, in regarding human cloning? But I absolutely guarantee it's got to be happening somewhere,
Yeah.
surely.
It must be fast.
Someone would be mad enough to do that somewhere.
Yeah. It must be fast cloning because they can duplicate people like in Hollywood. They talk about this and they show old pictures of people and then they show new pictures of people and they look exactly like somebody back in the Civil War. And so
Yeah.
who knows, is it reincarnation? Reincarnation, I heard you allude to that a while ago. That's being recycled. If you're bad, you got to come back down here and do it all over again.
Well, yeah, I think living on this planet is a wonderful experience. Even if you just walk out to the park one day and the breeze is blowing in your face, the sunlight's hitting your skin and warming yourself, it's just a place of beauty.
Mhm.
However, there are many people that say that once we are on the other side, this is not a place we want to come back to. So how transitional difference is it over there? It must be magnificent compared to here. And it's hard to imagine. Maybe it's just that the restraints and consciousness, and if you think of a place you can be there if you want to, maybe it's just that the shackles of our reality are come off and we have no bounds then. We don't really know enough of it, and maybe we're not supposed to know because these is the mechanism of life created by something a lot more powerful than you and I, and maybe we're not supposed to know. We're not supposed to cheat the program. So maybe there's good reason for that, to be honest
Life,
with you.
life is a mystery, and I've told people, yeah, I don't mind being, you know, cremated, but give me 3 days because I heard that 3 days your soul walks around to verify your death. So for some reason, but or your consciousness does that. Uh, let's get you talk about new technology. Can we time travel now, Stephen?
Yes, Even the US government made a release about 2 months ago to say we now can, yeah, transition from one place to another. We can do that. We so yeah, I mean time travel exists anyway. I mean we know that we send atomic clocks up on a high altitude aircraft. We pair it with an atomic clock here on ground. When that aircraft comes back down, it's lost some point of a seconds or so. Because the further out from the ground and out into space or even high altitude of Earth, you're going to get time dilation, because it's
Oh,
all relative to us here and now. Any scientist will tell you if you sit down with them, time doesn't exist. Space time doesn't exist. It's not the past, the future, the present don't exist. It's all simultaneously happening at the same time. So we've got to get our heads around how UAP and HI consider this, because it's only us restraining ourselves that because of time and this, that, and the other. It doesn't really exist. It's just a body clock. It's just a clock to help us understand and perceive the world around us and the mechanism to run by. But really, it doesn't. None of it exists. And their arguments is, all are linked together, past, present, and future now. So we've got to kind of wrap our heads around this, that it's non-existent in the real universe. It's
mm.
just something that we've manufactured.
Yeah, I look at things in life here. There's some scientists saying that this is a prison planet. We're all prisoners here on this planet, and we have to serve our time and go through all the human emotions, pain, suffering, happiness. And to tell you the truth, life is kind of like 50% fun times and then 50%
Cheers.
struggle and pain.
It
And
really is
yeah,
for everybody.
yeah.
Yeah, everybody's challenged, and you're supposed to be challenged. And I think it's a learning curve. Sometimes people find it too hard, and it's a shame that the psychological impact of that is just too hard, and you want to get off the gravy train. Some people, might be a bit luckier, and go through but there's always something. There's always some problem that will occur that will test us, and we are tested through life. Absolutely. Is it a prison planet? I don't know. There is certainly evidence now. There's new evidence that's come out from Dr. Beatrice Valera, I think her name is, who released some information last week. She had a paper, and she's an astronomer, had in a paper actually peer reviewed and confirmed. So now it is recognized that from early plate photography onto glass of objects in space around planet Earth, there could be quadrillions of these things, which is all circumnavigating globally the planet of our Earth. What they are, nobody knows. There seems to be tech because they disappear. They are reflective, you see. This is what makes them think the tech. Because in Earth's shadow, when the sun gets behind us, they disappear. Because they're not reflective. So that was a good analogy. It was good research, and it's proven. So the big question is now is what are they and who are they and how long have they been up there? And like I said, they've been up there. These glass plates were done in the 1940s initially. So we can say, well, it's before Sputnik, before the first satellite that we sent up, apparently, into space. So who put them there and what are they for? Are they to guard us from leaving the planet? And if so, how did we get to the moon? Did we have to get through a gap in it, or were we allowed to get through a gap in it? Who knows? We just don't know. Or is it something for monitoring humanity, monitoring the Earth? Or is it to keep something out? I just
Yeah.
don't know.
Well,
It's just a big mystery. But this is new stuff. It's only come out over the last week. So
yeah.
your viewers, your listeners should have a check out of that, about these strange things that have appeared. And I know she's done at least a couple of podcasts. I know she was on Ross Coulhart's show last week, and you can hear her talk about she's an astronomer. You can hear her talk about this new discovery. And to be honest, she was scared to release the information. She said she felt sick to the stomach and was very concerned. But I'm a scientist, and I've got to release the information. So where it leads, nobody knows at this moment in time. But it is absolutely, it's a big deal. It's a fascinating thing.
Well, some of these scientists, Michio Kakuo, he come up with he kind of added in something about the Viking. What is that? That Viking the satellite went out of our galaxy, not our galaxy, but out of our solar system.
The voyages,
Yeah,
yeah.
voyages, and
Yeah.
they got out there so far, they started getting messages again from something they don't know. It was
I
intelligent
did hear
control.
about that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I heard
There was
something about that.
there was a pixelated human face that had sent a message, And that's what Michio Kakuya was talking about. It's that face that they had, and then it told the craft, this Voyager, whatever, to turn and not go any further. You cannot go any further. Is what the radio transmission when
Right.
they
Is it has an image of this face been put out onto the internet or anything as yet?
yeah,
Or is it just people saying is
yeah, I heard about it. Michio Kakuya, I think he talked about it, and that's why a lot of these scientists jumped on this bandwagon of being a prisoner planet because we cannot go into interstellar space. Something stops us from going
I
any.
don't, do you know, if I was an alien race, I'd probably stop us as well, to be
Yeah,
honest.
yeah. Well,
We don't seem to do very good.
yeah,
It's not a good encounter, is it, to meet any human beings?
maybe we bring up these portals and wormholes and say only by invitation only.
Well, yeah, I mean, there is a professional name for these now. They're electron diffusion regions. NASA's announced the existence of them. But some of these are definitely at ground level, on the hemispherical part of the planet Earth, which the phenomenon utilizes, absolutely does. And we now have the evidence because frequencies can pass through them when the doors are open.
Hmm.
And when frequencies come through, because frequencies pass through them when they're being utilized, you can pick up data from the other side of the world like that,
Yeah.
from thousands of miles away.
Now, NASA has I guess, the outcome of those radio transmissions from that Voyager. They have it. That's a story that come through them, and then
Yeah,
Machu Picchu picked up on it and said that that could be possible. Uh, the other thing I wanted to talk to you about is we have time travel and MK Ultra tied together, maybe, and we have these. There's a lot of people who come up with this. They were soldiers and they fought in outer space. And
yeah,
I tried to think, that's kind of hard for me to
yeah.
stop.
Yeah.
But the thing with this, time travel could make that possible.
Well, it has to be because, I've looked at the legitimacy of these individuals and I don't think any of them are telling the truth, to be honest with you. I
Super
mean,
cool. Yeah, super cool.
yeah, I mean, I've come across people, they just made mistakes. They talk about, oh, yes, they were warring on Mars and fighting spider beings and all sorts of, I just kind of, yeah, right, okay. Look, we've got data now coming back from Mars. We know that's not the situation. However, you've got a number of people, there's people that have illnesses and can't move and said, "Oh, I'm a super soldier for the military and this, that, and the other." And you think, well, what your consciousness? Maybe your consciousness might be, because who knows? Might be able to hijack a consciousness and put them into somebody else. Who
Mhm.
knows? But at the end of the day, they try to convince. It's not convincing for me. From a science point of view, I've got to have evidence.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just an interesting story. Don't get me
Mhm.
wrong, but I've got to find the evidence. I've got to have at least some shred to hang on for dear life to, and yeah, I can't find any. It's just not enough there to me to say, there's a little shred of something I know. I'm just not finding it. And that's the shame, really, because they are interesting and fascinating stories. And there's quite a number of people have told me about that. It's just like when people say, now I've worked on underground secret bases and they've got all these special technologies. Again, I'm struggle to find the evidence. But it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It just means that I'm not finding evidence to say it exists. So I have to sort of I have to only apply to myself and say, look, I've got an acceptance level. I've got to have some shred, something, even if it's just a limited amount of some evidence to go on. Otherwise, I have to put it over here and say, okay, it's a possibility, but there's no evidence and just leave it on the shelf until something comes up. And that's kind of the way the situation is, to be honest with you, because there is, and it's done on purpose. It's not their fault. There are people out there which spread disinformation.
Yes.
Sometimes people are even paid to spread disinformation, or it's their job to spread this disinformation to sort of confuse people as to what the truth is and what it isn't. So I completely understand that.
Do we have bases on the moon or Mars, from what a lot of people are saying, Stephen?
I think so. And I think we have the technologies to do that, special technologies to do that. Of course. I mean, there was years and years ago, there used to be, books on anomalous lunar lights and stuff. Like sometimes the lights get switched on at certain places, it lights up like a Christmas tree. Oh, turn that light off, sort of thing. I know, so, but it does seem that way. And sometimes there seems to be evidence of mining. There's certain places of certain, sites where they've been crater sites, impact sites, which seem to have altered over a short period of time. Plumes of things coming up from the surface of Mars. Now we know, look, we kind of know, look, from the evidence we've got, has some vast hollow areas. Of course, it does. As NASA said, it rang like a bell when a probe smashed into it. It rang for ages, like ringing a bell. So there is some evidence of that. Is there things underground there? Yeah, there could easily be. It's our local neighbor. If we've got the technology to do that, we'd be there. And don't forget the reasons why. Mining the ore on the moon is worth trillions, not billions, trillions.
Yes.
So, of course, you've got to consider some enterprise, and that's what it's all about, money these days, are going to be there
Mhm.
and going to be doing things secretively. But then one day, eventually, we'll say, let's make it official, guys, that we're there. Just as the Space Force thing, one day it becomes an unmanageable secret. Too many people know it's time to release it to the general public that we're going there and we're going to do this when they're already there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would think they might be. It's very possible. I mean, trillions of dollars
Yeah.
for mining
And,
materials. Yeah,
and
that's a
humans
yeah.
are money oriented, and ETs know that. So
Oh
they
yes,
know that what drives us.
absolutely.
Uh, is there anything that you found out recently? I just want to explore some new stuff that you come about with, Stephen, that you might want to mention real quick.
Well, there's always new things that I'm coming across. A lot of the science work that's being done at the moment, new information that's coming out. We have a neuroscientist. It's just come out only the last couple of days. That has had such a profound paranormal experience. She believes that she's putting her academic line there to say in her accreditations that she believes we can communicate with um, the consciousness of people that passed away. And that's interesting coming from a neuroscientist.
Yeah.
Because these are the guys that would never, never say anything like this. She has done. And that's interesting. So I'm seeing interesting times. I'm seeing astrophysicists come forward and basically saying the UAP, the phenomena is not what we perceive it to be. It's highly deceptive. What was his name? Dr. Hugh Ross. He's the astrophysicist, very well known American astrophysicist. And he's basically saying the deception has always been very high, right from the day one when with Venusians coming from Venus. And then we realized Venus is not really a really nice place to be,
No,
to be honest with
no,
you.
no.
Oh, well, we're coming from the moon. And then we kind of get, yeah, well, it's not really. Oh, we're coming from Mars. Well, we're on Mars now and we've got stuff, probes and even a helicopter can fly on Mars now, a probe helicopter sort of thing. And we're not seeing so much activity there. Oh, well, and then what's happening is that we're coming from this planet and it's going further and further and further out. So why are we keep being told these different things? We're from here, no, we're not. We're from here, no, we're not. We're from here, no, we're not. And it seems that there's this line of deception that is identifying throughout history of this deception. And it's done on purpose because NHI don't want to reveal everything. So they'll tell you a story which is befitting and it's interesting and it's half believable until we get to a point where we realize, well, no, they're not on Venus, or
No.
whatever. And we start to realize, I mean, we had stories that, oh, we're from Earth, we're underground, you know, under the mountains or Atlantis or under the ice, in Antarctica. Who knows? We've got even those stories. So it seems to be forever changing further and further out. The more we press, they move on. Then we press that one, then we move on. So it's a chasing game in a sense of speaking. So there's lots of scientists coming out talking about that. There's also quite recently some debates in regarding people in the Pentagon area, should we say, of what information is true and what isn't, that's come out about that. The problem with this is that we might actually have people working in or have worked in UFO secretive programs which are providing disinformation at that level, be honest with you. So we might, it's confusing because we might switch on a YouTube and watch a video on somebody who's he's known to the subject of UAP, been worked on secret UFO programs, and they're saying one thing. And then you switch a channel and somebody else is saying the opposite. And this is the confusing thing. Who's right? Who's wrong? Who's truthful? Who isn't? And I would say if you get caught up like that, you just don't accept anything.
Yeah.
Don't battle yourself trying to say, who's he telling the truth? Or is this guy telling you? Just leave it at the door and say, look, doesn't matter. I'm
It's,
not going to sit here spending my time trying to work out if this guy's right or this guy's right. I'm going to go with my own instinct, my own experiences and move on, until better times, to be honest with you, because there is purpose. I guarantee it's purposely done. Do I think I know things are being purposely done that are spread information as well as disinformation? It's like done purposely. There are special people,
yeah.
the special departments. Rick Doty did this for a while. It actually was his job,
Yeah.
you know?
Even the leaders on the streets that are causing all the problems, they're being
Yes.
paid, to
Yeah.
do this.
I don't blame these guys. It's their job at the end of the day. They're doing what they're supposed to do. That's the job they do. So I'm not going to hold anything to them saying, oh, well, you said this and it was a lie. Well, I was doing my job. I had to tell you that. I
Mm.
understand that. It's not a problem. I get it. But at the same time, there are people actually paid jobs employed to lie.
Yeah.
And that's the problem that we face with
You
today.
know, if this is a prisoner planet, I hope I've collected enough spiritual currency to get on a flight that'll take me to several dimensions
Me
or through
too.
several dimensions to a higher purpose. And I think we're at the point now where we're at an hour and a half plus, Stephen. So if you can tell us something really quick tidbit of something interesting, and then tell us how we can get a hold of you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So recently there's been discussions with specialists that own manufacturing companies, people who build supersonic or have the capabilities of building supersonic jets and things like that. I mean, not just breaking the sound bar, but really supersonic, going beyond it. They have been told they're not allowed to do that anymore. The governments are saying, look, you're not allowed to do it. Leave that. We're in control of this area. We don't want that in the public domain. So what is it the government are so frightened about supersonic? In other words, things flying faster than sound.
Yeah. They, yeah.
Hypersonic. We're talking hypersonic constructions now. And the government does not want that out in the general field of contractors. They want to be in control of the hypersonic velocity manufacturing of craft. So it's kind of saying, let's just keep control of this situation now, and we will only deal with this. And we won't let it out to contractors to allow them to do that. They can do it, they know how to do it, but
Yeah.
they're not allowed to.
Yeah.
And it also came up referencing about even the laws now and the rulings about going to the moon have changed. It's like you can't just be anyone who goes to the moon, even though that is a big long line of people saying, I'm a construction company, I'm a mining construction company, I'm a salvager, I want to work with the moon. And this big long list of things, companies which are waiting in the background to get there. Yes, you can go to the moon. Yes, you can do this. And they're held off for now. And they're all sat there waiting with the fingers on the button, ready to go for it. But it's the governments that are holding them off. Now, I don't know if we are going to go back to the moon in any recent times, but it'd be interesting if we do, because apparently it is a feat to go to the moon and they pulled it off so well during the Apollo missions. I have to question not that they went, but what technology they used to get there. That's the secret thing. And they would have had a backup thing for it. If they failed, they would have been told they were successful and just failed on the way back.
Yeah.
That is why you might have some photographs and some videos which are clearly fake, because they probably are, because they did some filming in a studio or whatever to back up just in case it didn't happen. They're not going to say our fellow Americans, the astronauts, have had a terrible injuries or they've terrible accident and they've failed to get to the moon. No, they would have said, get the video out, guys. And we're going to show them the video that we got to the moon. And then we would have just said, guys, there's been a terrible incident on the way back from the moon. But at that time, winning the space race, of course they would have done. Absolutely, they could have done. And this is why we've got fake photos and videos and authentic photos and videos out there of the Apollo moon landing, and they get mixed up. And now it's just one big jumble. It's disinformation and information put together. Some are fake, some aren't fake, some are real. They definitely went there because there's evidence of their activities on the moon. We can see that now from telescopes. But going back there, I think that they may have used specialized technologies to help them do that in 1969. But and maybe now we have technologies that might easily do that. And this is what I think we're probably already there, but in the public domain, we're not.
Right.
So there's this again, we've got this level of this is what the public know, and this is what we know.
Yeah.
And those two will be massive apart from each other at some point.
That's a good explanation about having a backup plan of production and pictures and video. I never heard that before, but that's a good angle.
They must have done.
Yeah.
Any scientist will turn around and say to you, the amount of money, the amount of effort, and the amount of importance of winning the space race. We've got to do a backup plan because we can't fail this mission. And if we do fail it, we're going to let them know we didn't. We got there. And where's the evidence? Because we got fake footage of them landing on the moon and stuff like that. Scenes of being on the moon, that sort of thing. And that's got released and it's all got mixed up in the pot. So now we've got fake stuff and real stuff. And nobody really knows. This is why you got so many people out there going, I don't believe in the Apollo missions. It was all fake. Why? Because you're going off the videos and you're going off the photographs. Some of these are fake. So you are right in some sense.
Mhm.
But then there's the other side that, yes, they went
That's
and
great.
they were successful. But I think they must have used some secret technologies, and that's where the secret lies. Is that what helped them get to the moon? Because I just don't think they could have pulled it off in what the stuff they had at that time, to be honest.
Yeah, they didn't have technology beyond a hand calculator today.
No,
Yeah, so the ETs might have helped them. Might have,
it's very possible, and this is why the secrecy is around it, is because of that, and not because they didn't go, but because of how they managed to do it.
Mhm. Stephen, uh, tell us where we can find you on the internet, and I'm going to list this in the narrative, your links and
Yeah.
things of that nature. I will be doing that, but
Okay.
tell us what your next steps are and what's going to happen. You do have a promo that you're talking about. You might
Yes,
want to
yes.
mention that.
Yeah, we'll be selecting some little pieces and parts of a promo to go onto my channel to direct people who watch my material, fans, followers, that sort of thing, to watch the full version of this because we've covered a lot of subjects over this on this interview, so which people are going to find fascinating. So we're going to be taking my traffic over to
Hmm.
watch this for your side of the channel as well.
Sure.
I'm currently working. I mean, Project Doorway. We've been 10 years on Project Doorway, working with Barry Fitzgerald in regarding trying to gather evidence of portals. Do they really exist?
Mhm.
And forget just the talk and the stories. Is the evidence, and we've got it now. We've achieved. It took 10 years, but we've got it. We've achieved it. And I have to take my hat off to Barry Fitzgerald. It couldn't have been done without him. Incredible researcher that I've worked with for the last 10 years. I'm also working on Project Enigma, and that's all about NHI communications and about how it went back in time. Even Tesla, like we said earlier about, and many, many others, rocket geniuses, different types of Jack Parsons, and all sorts of different people have been involved in NHI communications over the years. So I'm working in that area in Project Enigma, and the NHI discussions, which is kind of a closed, bit like a skiff, really. We're closed roomed
Mhm.
conversations with other specialists that work in the study of NHI. Some of those things have been placed out on my channel, but they have to be. Unfortunately, some parts have to be edited because it's a private conversations, and some things we cannot let out to the public yet.
Yeah.
Other things we can, so we've been doing that as well. So I'm involved in a number of different things. I will be on Coast to Coast AM live with George Noory, and that it will be on August the 20th. Yes, sorry, the 25th, August the 25th, for in the US.
Okay.
I think they run from like 10 o'clock at night till midnight or something like, or 12 till 2 a.m. in the morning, I think in
Uh,
time.
is that radio or is that on Gaia?
It's that's the Coast to Coast AM radio,
Okay.
but they also put it out to their own channel, and they have their own YouTube channel as well, so that
Yeah.
can be featured. It will be featured on there at some point, but it will be live at the time with George Noory. And I've got quite a number of projects which I'm meeting up with good friend and Jesse Michaels, who's also very well known in this particular subject. He's traveling over to London and meeting him next week to catch up on some things and do some filming and stuff. So yes, it's busy times. And my own channel, my YouTube channel, where you can find a lot of the stuff about the research that we do, where we're currently up to, Project Doorway, Project Enigma, and other stuff, and the NHI discussions. I've just done a big feature on the skull experiment, things that people didn't really know what went on there, which was a significant seance experiments that took place in the UK that involved the manifestation of miniature UFOs and all sorts of different strange things, as well as NHI beings around the seance sessions. Is fascinating. So that is Steve Mera Official is my YouTube channel, Steve Mera Official. You'll find it. Most times people I'd say, look, just type Steve Mera, Mera, into your Google, and you'll find all sorts of things. I've been, like I say, you touched on it right at the beginning when you introduced me. 41 years now into this subject, and I've done pretty much everything.
No.
Wrote books, done the TV stuff, lectured internationally all over the world, investigations and experiments around the world. So you get involved in so many different things, but I like to be challenged and I like people to learn and be advanced. Advancing the subject is a key thing for me. Let us not stay static, because we've been static on this subject of
Yeah.
UFOs and paranormal as well for so many years. It's just not developed.
No.
And now you, me, and everybody's making this effort to try and push forward and learn new stuff and which leads to new experiments, new research. That's the drive probably for you. It's a drive for me and many others in this subject. We're all trying to go in that same direction and give it a little bit of a push. But my details are there. My email and phone number is I'm always available to be communicated with by anybody, and they can get in touch with me quite easily. So that's a good
All right.
thing.
Well, I love talking to you, Stephen. I know that you're loaded with information, and you got information that I enjoy because I've I've been through some of these experiences, and I want to have answers. And I'd like for people to open their minds and be conscious and have consciousness about this whole phenomena, because that's how we're going to learn. And Stephen Mera, thank you so much for doing the show from UK.
Thank you.
I
Thank
know
you for
our
having me on,
time,
Dave.
we always have a lovely time every time we get together. So I appreciate that, and all the way from the UK. And thank you for listening to the show, The Strange Reality with Dave Emmons, Steve Mera, my guest. Good night, all, or good afternoon, whenever you hear this. Bye bye.